Hey, you guys, welcome back to the channel. I've got a video here from Jago Hazard. We haven't looked at any of his videos in a while, so let's remedy that today. I really enjoy his videos in particular because he has a little bit of a dry sense of humor, which I like. And then he also incorporates a lot of history and kind of behind the scenes story. He explains stuff. And for somebody like me that doesn't know much about this, I'm learning from these videos. It's very helpful. But this particular one is the A class, the first underground trains. So I'm excited to see what he has in store for us today. I will link this video in the description so you can go check it out yourself. If you, for some reason, have not already subscribed to Jago, please do so. He's incredible. I'll also have links to Patreon, how you can support the channel here on YouTube, as well as my sports channel. If you haven't done so, go check it out, especially if you like rugby reacts. But yeah, let's just jump in.
Today we're going to look at some really old underground trains. Ah no, older than that. Older than that even. No wait, that's too old. Forward a bit. That's it. At
All
the head
right,
of this
steam
train is one of the
trains.
Metropolitan Railway's A-Class, the first locomotives built especially for an underground railway. Well, sort of, it's complicated. So, as you might already know, the first ever underground line was the Metropolitan Railway, which opened in 1863 and originally ran from Paddington to Farringdon. At first, the Metropolitan Railway had no trains of its own, but rather was operated by the Great Western Railway, who connected with it at Paddington.
Paddington.
The Great Western actually supplied the line with purpose-built locomotives known as the Metropolitan tanks, which I guess technically makes those the first locomotives built especially for an underground railway, but quiet you. The thing is, quite early on, things fell apart between the Great Western and the Metropolitan Railways. There were arguments about frequency of services, about safety, and about, of course, money. Basically, the Great Western didn't want to contribute any money towards extending the Metropolitan.
Wow, look at this area. This isn't current, is it? That's a mess. Maybe it's because are they building? Hmm.
Unless they also got part ownership, which leads me to wonder if their long-term plan was to take over. Anyway, the long and short of it was that the Great Western flounced out, taking their trains with them. The Great Northern Railway, who also used the Metropolitan
That's
tracks,
pretty.
quickly stepped in with some locomotives that had been hastily adapted for tunnel running. These did not work very well, with one actually exploding at Paddington, and the Metropolitan Railway had obviously realised the pitfalls of relying on another company. So they decided to obtain their own. Now, larger companies would typically build locomotives in-house, but the Met didn't have that facility. So instead, they ordered locomotives from Bayer Peacock of Manchester. John Fowler, the company's chief engineer, oversaw the design. At this point I should mention that there's some debate over who actually designed the locomotives. The design is often attributed to Fowler, but they were adapted from a class that Bayer Peacock had already manufactured for the
Hmm.
Tudela to Bilbao railway. This is one of the Spanish engines, and here, for comparison, is the locomotive the Metropolitan got in 1864. I'm inclined to say that they're Bayer Peacock engines with Fowler input. The Metropolitan was a demanding line. The locomotives had to be capable of accelerating and
So it basically took an old thing and kind of just updated it just a tad, maybe.
stopping quickly and frequently. They also had to be able to handle tight curves. And, most problematic of all, they had to be able to run through tunnels for long distances. The first locomotives would become known as the A-Class. The Metropolitan
Okay.
lettered its locomotive classes, and indeed the tradition continues all the way to the present, with the current trains on the line being known as S-Stock. The A-Class were 440 tank engines.
So is that like standard? I would guess that's what the S is for. If you guys know, let me know in the comments. I'm sure a bunch of you do know.
This wheel arrangement was common on passenger locomotives and was well suited to tight curves. So far, so conventional. Now we need to consider the ways that these were designed for the Metropolitan in particular. Obviously, they have no cabs, only spectacle plates. The Met at this time was almost completely underground. That being said, locomotives of this era commonly didn't have cabs anyway.
Hmm.
I'm also going to say that the cab doors look a lot narrower than any others I've seen. But the most obvious adaptation is the condensers, these pipes from the cylinders to the tanks. A steam engine typically discharges a lot of steam, and obviously that's not ideal in a tunnel. The condensers were designed to collect the majority of that steam, condense it, and discharge the water back into the tanks. The locomotives burned coke
Ah,
initially, later switching to Welsh coal. These are both relatively smokeless forms of fuel. Relatively. The fireman was also forbidden from stoking the fire unless the locomotive was in a station where there were ventilation shafts. In the early days, the engines were painted olive green, later being repainted in the deep crimson colour that's perhaps more familiar. They were given classically inspired names. Number 1 was Jupiter, number 2 was Mars, and so on. There were 18 in the first batch, the last being named Hercules. Further batches would be delivered from 1866 to 1869, with the final number standing at 39. The 1868 and 1869 batches had a higher boiler pressure. The engines were modified throughout their working lives. The names didn't last long, only being given to the first batch and removed at overhaul. In the 1880s they were reboilered, and the wheels and cylinders were also increased in size. All of these changes making for faster and more powerful engines. From 1895 they were fitted with cabs, which were rather unpopular with drivers in the tunnels. More locomotives were required in 1879, which were fitted with radial axles and a shorter wheelbase to make them even better at dealing with curves. Put simply, they were improved based on experience. The locomotives that arrived after 1879 would be known as the B class. These engines were far from perfect. I should once again emphasise that no one had ever built a railway like this before, so there were inevitably going to be teething troubles. Even with the measures to reduce smoke and steam, the atmosphere in the tunnels was pretty Stygian, with early accounts stating that you often couldn't see a train coming along the opposite line until it
wow.
passed you. Nor was it very pleasant for the passengers, although at least one tame doctor claimed on the Met's behalf that the smoke was actually beneficial for bronchial complaints.
I also used to say, I saw an old army ad, the US Army, it was like telling people to smoke because it helped with killing bacteria and stuff. It reminded me of like an Always Sunny episode. I don't think they knew a whole lot. We probably don't know how there's going to be 80 years plus in the future. They're going to be like those idiots.
Other quacks sold a patent medicine known as Metropolitan mixture as a remedy for the effects of smoke inhalation. It
Snake
was
oil
a different
salesman.
time. The condensers were also a problem. They worked, but the issue was that the overall temperature of the recirculated water became warmer and warmer. The injector, the device that pumps water from the tanks into the boiler, relies on difference in temperature to function. As the water heats up, so the injector becomes less efficient, and the one thing you absolutely do not want under any circumstances is an injector that doesn't work. The
Hmm.
engines would have to be paused every so often to have their tanks refilled with cold water. The constant stopping and starting caused metal fatigue in the coupling rods, leading to breakages. This was partially resolved by fitting thicker coupling rods, and fully resolved by replacing the valve gear between 1893 and 1896. Despite the engine's shortcomings, they were evidently enough of a success to interest other railway companies. Similar engines were ordered by the Midland Railway, the London and South Western Railway, and the London and North Western Railway. That being said, Francis Webb, chief mechanical engineer of the London and North Western Railway, was not a huge fan of the locomotives and had them rebuilt like this and like this.
Hmm.
The Metropolitan's rivals, the District Railway, also bought their own. No surprise, given that the requirements were basically identical. In fact, they used much of the same track, which will become important shortly. William Adams designed a series of suburban passenger locomotives for the North.
Gordon. It's like Thomas from Thomas and Friends?
London Railway, which it's hard not to see as influenced by the A-class.
Or is that like the
Adams would later
station?
design the 415 class tank engines for the London and South Western, which again, I have to say, look like a descendant. The Met tanks were long-lasting too. Unfortunately, they were overtaken by technology. By the beginning of the 20th century,
I
there
like
were
the
3
yellow.
electrically powered underground railways in London and an ever-increasing number of electric tramways. Electrification on the smoky old Metropolitan and District was inevitable, with the now legendary Charles Yerkes taking the reins on the project. Electrification didn't cover the whole Metropolitan, in fact it
That's
wouldn't
cool.
until 1961, 28 years after the company had
That
ceased to
was
exist.
really cool.
But by the early 20th century there were new, more modern engines to cover the long-distance, unelectrified services. So the A-class found themselves taken off the front line from 1905 onwards. Some were scrapped. Some were transferred to departmental service and shunting. Some would enjoy a second life, sold off to minor railways. A few were sold to the Cambrian railways, where 2 were converted into tender engines. 2 went to the Mersey Railway, another urban commuter line with underground running. And 2, numbers 41 and 23, were exiled to the Brill branch, one of the Met's outermost reaches. There they would shuttle back and forth with a single coach or a few wagons. A far
Hmm.
cry from the intensive inner-city service for which they were built. The final end came in 1935. In 1933, the Metropolitan was taken over by London Transport, who seemed to find the Brill branch a bit of an embarrassment. So, 2 years later, the line was closed.
Oh,
Number
excuse me.
41 was scrapped.
I'm not bored, guys. It's been a long day.
But for number 23, there would be a reprieve. It went to Neasden, where it lived out its last 13 years as a shunter, finally being withdrawn in
Look at that. Like, what is this? A viaduct or just a little bridge? Probably doesn't exist anymore.
1948. By this time, it was 82 years old and recognised as a pioneer. It was retired to the
Wow.
Clapham Transport Museum, then to the London Transport Museum. In between, finding time to participate in the 1963 centenary of the London Underground. Those frantic early days are far behind it. Now, it serves as a reminder of how far the Underground has come.
Yeah, you imagine like how much they've learned since then. Not even just about like powering them, but like think about like they were talking about with the smoke and the inhalation and just the health stuff too. Um, they've come a long way. There's been a lot of innovation,
Well, I hope
and
you enjoyed this steamy tale from the tube. If you did, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. I would like to thank my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon for your support. You are the Welsh coal to my firebox, and I'll see you all again very soon for another tale from the tube.
I like him so much. Um, Yeah, if you guys know any particular videos or particular lines that you want me to look at, leave them in the comments. Jago or anybody else. I try not to do like crazy long ones because when I'm on top of them, stopping them and playing them, then the video becomes very long, and just most people don't stay and watch. Uh, but yeah, just throw them in the comments. You can send me links. You can tell me the video names if you want to, and I'll find them. Um, but I do like these in particular that give you a lot of history. I like where they ride them too, and you kind of get to see the experience, see the trades, see the stations, especially the ones that kind of show you the inside of the stations too. But I really enjoy like learning about the history of it. It helps me remember things a little bit better, and I have like a god awful memory as it is. So anything that can help. Um, but if you guys would enjoy it, send them my way, and I'll definitely take a look. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Go over, give him a like and a subscribe if you haven't done so. And yeah, thanks for watching with me, guys. I will catch you tomorrow with another video.